The Galactic Council building floated in the empty space between 3 star systems. It was old, very old. The 12 elder species had built it long before humanity learned to make fire. For thousands of years, the great powers of the galaxy had gathered here to make laws, settle fights, and decide the fate of entire worlds. Today, the Council was watching its newest members with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage just 3 standard cycles ago. Their first ship had stumbled out of faster-than-light travel near a Tyranny patrol vessel, spinning wildly and leaking atmosphere. The Tyranny had expected aggression, perhaps weapons fire. Instead, they received a radio message that their translators struggled to process. "Hello there. Sorry about that. First time driving one of these things. Don't suppose you could point. Used toward the nearest gas station." That had been humanity's introduction to the galaxy. It set the tone for everything that followed. Ambassador Jack Morrison stood in the center of the great hall. He was a tall man with brown hair going gray at the temples. His face held an easy smile that seemed to never fade. He wore a simple, dark suit instead of the ornate robes favored by other species. In his hands, he carried a large plate covered with small brown circles. "Counselors," he said warmly, "my government asked me to bring a gift from Earth. These are called chocolate chip cookies. My wife made them herself. Please, take as many as you like." Counselor Vreth of the Tyranny Dominion watched from his elevated seat. He was an impressive creature, standing 8 feet tall with deep blue skin covered in bony ridges. His people had ruled 1,000 worlds for 10,000 years. They had crushed rebellions, won wars against species that no longer existed, and built an empire that spanned an entire arm of the galaxy. And now this small, soft human was offering him baked goods. "Ambassador Morrison," Vreth said slowly, "we are discussing the territorial boundaries in the Outer Rim. This is a serious matter." "Oh, absolutely," Morrison agreed with a nod. "Very serious? But serious work goes better with something sweet, don't you think? Here, Counselor, try one. The chocolate is from a region called Belgium. Lovely place, lots of rain." A Tyranny aide carefully took a cookie and brought it to Vreth. The counselor examined it like one might examine a strange insect. Then, mostly to end the awkward moment, he took a small bite. It was delicious. Vreth said nothing, but he finished the cookie and gestured for another. Around the chamber, similar scenes played out. The insectoid Keth clicked their mandibles in confusion, but accepted the offering. The tall, thin Volari sniffed the cookies suspiciously before trying them. The aquatic Morati, speaking through translation devices in their water-filled encounter suits, expressed something like pleasure. This was humanity. This was what they did. In the 3 years since first contact, humans had become known throughout Council space for their strange behaviors. They smiled at strangers. They apologized when someone else bumped into them. They asked questions about other cultures with genuine interest. They remembered names, birthdays, and personal details that other species considered unimportant. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park served as Morrison's aide. She was a small woman with black hair and sharp eyes. She had served in Earth's military for 15 years and had seen combat during the last resource wars on her homeworld. Now she stood quietly behind the ambassador, her posture relaxed, her expression pleasant. When a Keth delegate accidentally knocked her datapad from her hands, she picked it up with a smile. "No problem at all. These things happen. I once dropped an entire tray of coffee on my commanding officer." Now that was embarrassing. The Keth delegate stared at her. His species communicated through pheromones as much as sound, and he could not understand why this creature was radiating calmness instead of anger. After the session ended, Counselor Vreth walked with his senior advisor through the station's long corridors. The advisor, an older Tyranny named Keleth, had served 3 generations of counselors. What do you make of them? Vreth asked. Keleth considered the question carefully. They come from a death world. Extreme temperatures, unstable geology, predators in every environment. By all logic, they should be aggressive, territorial, dangerous. And yet they bring cookies. And yet they bring cookies, Keleth agreed. They apologize when you step on their foot. They offer to help carry heavy objects. They learn our languages, even when translators make it unnecessary. Vreth stopped walking. Are they stupid? Weak? Playing some long game we cannot see? I have studied their history, Keleth said. They have been fighting each other for their entire existence. Wars over land, resources, ideas, even the color of their skin. They nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons less than 300 years ago. They are capable of terrible violence. Then why this act? Keleth was quiet for a moment. Perhaps it is not an act. Perhaps they simply decided to be different when they reached the stars. Perhaps they grew tired of fighting. Vreth made a dismissive sound. A species does not change its nature. No, Keleth agreed. It does not. The next morning, Ambassador Morrison requested a meeting with the Keth hegemony's representative. Earth needed passage through a neutral zone controlled by the Keth to establish a new trade route. The route would save months of travel time and open up economic opportunities for both species. Morrison presented his case clearly and politely. He outlined the benefits, addressed potential concerns, and offered generous terms. He smiled throughout the presentation. The Keth representative, a large male named Vorax, listened without expression. When Morrison finished, Vorax leaned forward. Your request is denied, he said flatly. The hegemony sees no benefit in allowing human vessels through our space. You may use the longer route. Morrison's aide, Lieutenant Commander Park, stiffened slightly. The longer route added 4 months to each journey. It would cost Earth's economy billions. The denial was unreasonable, almost insulting, but Morrison simply nodded. His smile did not waver. I understand completely, he said pleasantly. Thank you for your time, Delegate Vorax. Perhaps we can revisit this matter in the future. In the meantime, please accept these cookies as a token of Earth's friendship. He placed a small container on the table and left the room. Vorax stared at the container for a long moment. Then he turned to his aide. What kind of species accepts such treatment with a smile? A weak one, the aide answered confidently. Yes, Vorax agreed. That must be it. That evening, Morrison and Park sat in the small office assigned to Earth's diplomatic mission. The room was modest compared to the grand suites given to elder species, but Morrison had decorated it with photographs from Earth. Mountains, oceans, cities, people smiling at the camera. That was humiliating, Park said quietly. The Keth route would have helped millions of people. And Vorax just dismissed us like we were nothing. Morrison poured 2 cups of tea. He did. And you just smiled and gave him cookies. I did. Park took the cup but did not drink. Permission to speak freely, sir? Always. Sometimes I wonder if this approach is working. We have been polite, patient, and friendly for 3 years. And they still treat us like children. Morrison looked at the photographs on his wall. One showed his wife and 2 daughters standing in front of their house in Colorado. They were laughing at something just out of frame. Lisa, he said slowly, do you know why humanity chose this approach? Because we wanted to be different. Better than we were. That is part of it. He sipped his tea. But there is another reason. We spent 10,000 years solving problems with violence. We got very, very good at it. Too good. We nearly ended ourselves. He set down his cup. The decision to be polite, to be kind, to smile even when others do not deserve it, that was not weakness. It was a choice. We chose to put away what we were capable of. We chose to try something new. Park studied his face. And if someone forces you to make a different choice? Morrison looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than his years. Then we remember who we used to be, and we become that again. He smiled, but this time it did not reach his eyes. But let us hope it never comes to that. New Haven was a beautiful world. Green hills rolled across its surface like waves on a gentle sea. 3 suns hung in the sky, and the light they gave was warm and golden. 17,000 humans had built their homes here, carving farms from the rich soil and raising families under the alien stars. The colony had been established 5 years ago. It was not a military outpost or a mining operation. It was simply a place where people wanted to live, to grow food, to build something good. Mary Collins woke up on the morning of the vanishing to the smell of bread baking. Her husband Daniel was already in the kitchen, pulling fresh loaves from the oven. Their 2 children, Emma and Sam, sat at the table doing homework. "Morning, sleepyhead," Daniel said with a grin. "Coffee is ready." Mary kissed him on the cheek and poured herself a cup. Through the window, she could see their neighbor, old Frank Peters, walking his dog along the dirt road. Everything was normal. Everything was peaceful. The attack came without warning. There was no explosion, no army marching over the hills. One moment the sky was clear and golden. The next, massive ships blocked out the suns. They hung in the air like dark clouds, silent and terrible. Mary grabbed her children and pulled them close. Daniel ran for the communication console, trying to send a distress signal. His fingers moved across the controls, but the screen showed only static. "They are jamming everything," he said, his voice tight with fear. Outside, the screaming started. Strange figures moved through the streets. They were tall, covered in gray armor, with too many limbs and faces that held no expression. They moved fast, faster than anything Mary had ever seen. People ran, but there was nowhere to go. The figures carried devices that fired beams of blue light. Anyone hit by the light simply collapsed, unconscious. Daniel grabbed a kitchen knife. "Take the children. Run for the forest. I will hold them off." "Daniel, no. Go. Now. I love you." Mary ran. She held Emma with one arm and dragged Sam with the other. They made it to the back door, through the garden, toward the tree line at the edge of their property. A blue light hit her in the back. The world went dark. When she woke up, she was alone. The council was in session when the news arrived. Ambassador Morrison sat in his usual seat, listening to a debate about trade regulations. Lieutenant Commander Park stood behind him, fighting to stay awake. The discussion had been going on for 3 hours. A young officer from Earth's diplomatic staff entered the chamber quietly. He walked quickly to Park and whispered something in her ear. Her face went pale. She leaned down to Morrison. "Sir, we need to speak privately. Now." Morrison excused himself and followed her into the corridor. The young officer stood there, his hands shaking. "Report," Morrison said. "New Haven Colony, sir. We have lost all contact. A patrol ship arrived this morning to investigate." The officer swallowed hard. "The colony is empty. All 17,000 colonists are gone. Buildings are intact. Food is still on tables. Toys in yards. But every single person has vanished." Morrison stood very still. "Any signs of what happened?" "Energy signatures, sir. The analysts have matched them. It was the Zorth Collective." Park's jaw tightened. The Zorth were known throughout the galaxy. They operated beyond council space, in the lawless regions where no laws reached. They raided worlds, took people, and sold them as slaves. They had been doing it for centuries. How many children? Morrison asked quietly. The officer looked down. "Initial census records show over 4,000 colonists under the age of 18, sir." Morrison closed his eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he opened them again, something had changed. The warmth was gone. The easy smile was gone. What remained was something harder, something older. Contact Earth Command. Full emergency session. I want Admiral Nathan Cole on secure channel within the hour. Yes, sir. Morrison turned to Park. We are going back into that chamber. Say nothing until I give you the signal. They returned to the council session. Morrison walked slowly to his seat. The debate about trade regulations continued. Nobody seemed to notice that anything was wrong. Councillor Vreth was speaking. The tariffs must be adjusted to account for transportation costs. The Tyranny Dominion will not accept anything less than a 12% reduction. Morrison stood up. The chamber fell silent. It was unusual for a delegate to interrupt. I apologize for the interruption, Morrison said. His voice was calm, but there was no smile now. I must inform the Council of a developing situation. Several hours ago, the human colony on New Haven was attacked. All 17,000 colonists, including over 4,000 children, have been taken. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward with interest. Others looked bored. We have identified the attackers through energy signature analysis, Morrison continued. The Zorth Collective is responsible. Councillor Vreth made a sound that might have been sympathy, but sounded more like dismissal. Ambassador Morrison, the Council extends its condolences. However, the Zorth operate beyond our jurisdiction. They are outside Council space. There is nothing we can do. I am not asking you to do anything, Morrison said. I am informing you, as a courtesy, that humanity will be handling this matter directly. The chamber went quiet. Delegate Vorax of the Keth hegemony let out a clicking sound that his translator rendered as laughter. Handle it how? Will you ask the Zorth nicely to return your people? Will you bring them cookies? Several delegates joined in the laughter. The Zorth were the most feared raiders in the galaxy. They had fleets that could destroy entire systems. They had been terrorizing the outer regions for 500 years, and nobody had ever stopped them. Morrison looked at Vorax. He did not smile. He did not speak. He simply looked. The laughter died slowly. Ambassador Morrison, Councillor Vreth said carefully, I understand your people are upset, but you must be realistic. Humanity has been in space for 1 generation. The Zorth have been a power for centuries. What can you possibly do? Morrison turned to face the Councillor directly. You have observed humanity for 3 years. You have seen us smile, apologize, and offer gifts. You have decided that we are weak, harmless, perhaps even stupid. He paused. You are wrong. Park handed him a datapad. He looked at it briefly, then looked back at the Council. In the next 72 hours, Earth's Unified Military Command will transmit a warning to the Zorth Collective. They will be given a chance to return our people. If they refuse, or if they ignore us, we will take our people back ourselves. Vreth leaned back in his seat. And if you fail? If the Zorth destroy your fleet? Morrison picked up his briefcase. He straightened his tie. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. Councillor Vreth, I have served my government for 30 years. I have negotiated with enemies, made peace with rivals, and built bridges between peoples who hated each other. I believe in diplomacy. I believe in kindness. I believe that talking is almost always better than fighting. He walked toward the chamber exit. At the door, he turned back. But make no mistake. Everything I do, everything my species does, is a choice. We chose to be polite. We chose to be patient. We chose to smile even when you laughed at us. His eyes moved across the chamber, meeting the gaze of every delegate. If the Zorth have harmed our people, we will make a different choice. And you will discover what humanity looks like when we are not being nice. He left the chamber. Counselor Vreth turned to his advisor. Calith, what do you think? An empty threat? Calith was quiet for a long moment. He was remembering something he had read at his historical records. A quote from a human general, spoken centuries ago. It is well that war is so terrible, otherwise we should grow too fond of it. I do not think it is an empty threat, Calith said slowly. I think we should hope that it is. The Zoreth homeworld was a dark place. Its sun was old and red, casting weak light across a surface covered in metal and stone. Great fortress cities rose from the ground like teeth, and ships filled the skies in constant patrol. For 500 years, the Zoreth Collective had built their empire on the suffering of others. They did not farm, did not manufacture, did not create. They took. Worlds fell before their fleets, and the survivors were dragged away in chains. Supreme Commander Korath ruled from the tallest tower in the capital city. He was massive, even by Zoreth standards, standing nearly 12 feet tall with 4 arms covered in ritual scars. His face was hidden behind a mask of black metal, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. Today, he was amused. Play it again, he commanded. His communication officer touched a control, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the command chamber. A human male in military uniform stood at attention. He was older, with gray hair and a face lined by years of service. His name, according to the transmission header, was Admiral Nathan Cole. To the Supreme Commander of the Zoreth Collective, the recording began. I am Admiral Nathan Cole of Earth's Unified Defense Force. 72 hours ago, your forces attacked the human colony of New Haven. You took 17,000 of our citizens, including over 4,000 children. Korath leaned forward, his mask hiding whatever expression he wore. You have 72 hours from the receipt of this message to return every single one of our people, alive and unharmed, to the following coordinates. A string of numbers appeared on the screen. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a statement of fact. Admiral Cole paused. When he spoke again, his voice was harder. Return our people, or we will come for them ourselves. And we will not be polite about it. The transmission ended. Korath sat in silence for a moment. Then he began to laugh. It was an ugly sound, like metal scraping against metal. His subordinates joined in, the chamber filling with harsh amusement. Not polite, Korath repeated. The humans will not be polite. He stood from his throne and walked to the window, looking out at the fleet yards where hundreds of warships waited. Do they know who we are? Do they understand what we have done to species far older and stronger than them? His second in command, a scarred female named Dasara, stepped forward. They are young, Supreme Commander. They have been in space for barely a generation. Perhaps they do not understand the reality of the galaxy. Then we shall educate them. Korath turned to his communication officer. Open a channel. I want to respond to this insult personally. Make sure the entire sector can hear. The channel opened. Korath removed his mask, revealing a face that had launched 1,000 nightmares. He smiled, showing rows of teeth filed to sharp points. Little humans, he began, his voice dripping with contempt. I am Korath, Supreme Commander of the Zoreth Collective. I have received your message. I found it amusing. He walked closer to the recording device, filling the frame with his terrible face. You have been in space for barely a generation. You smile and beg and bring sweets to your betters. You think a polite warning will frighten us. We have conquered worlds while your ancestors were still living in caves. His smile widened. Let me explain to you how the galaxy works. The strong take from the weak. It has always been so. It will always be so. Your people are already being processed. The young ones fetch excellent prices in the outer markets. The strong ones will work in our mines until they break. This is their fate. This is your fate if you interfere. He leaned back, spreading all four arms wide. Come for your people, if you wish. Bring your tiny fleet. Bring your cookies and your smiles. We will crush you, and then we will take your homeworld. Every human will serve the collective. Your children, your children's children, forever. He laughed again. 72 hours? I give you 72 hours to say goodbye to your families. After that, we come for you. The transmission ended. The Zara looked at her commander with something like concern. Supreme Commander, should we not prepare defenses? In case they actually come? Korath waved a dismissive hand. Move the home fleet to standard defensive positions. But do not worry. The humans are weak. They will send a token force, we will destroy it, and they will learn their place. As you command. The Zorath message reached Earth within hours. It was broadcast across every news network, played in every home, shown in every school. 11 billion humans watched as Korath mocked their species, laughed at their children, and promised to enslave their world. Admiral Cole watched the recording in his office at Earth Defense Command. Lieutenant Commander Park stood beside him, her fist clenched at her sides. They are laughing at us, she said quietly. Yes. Cole's voice was flat, emotionless. They have our people, our children, and they are laughing. Yes. Park turned to look at him. Sir, what do we do? Cole was quiet for a long moment. He was thinking about history, about all the times humanity had faced darkness and chosen to fight, about the wars they had won, the enemies they had defeated, the impossible odds they had overcome. Humans were not a peaceful species. They had simply decided to try peace for a while, to see if kindness worked better than violence, to give the galaxy a chance. The galaxy had failed the test. 72 hours ago, the Emergency Council met, Cole said slowly. Every nation on Earth was represented. Every leader, every government, every voice that matters. They took a vote. He pulled up a document on his screen. The question was simple. How do we respond to the taking of our people? Do we accept it? Do we negotiate? Or do we fight? Park looked at the numbers on the screen. Her breath caught in her throat. 94%, she whispered. 94% of humanity voted for military action. Not just action, but unrestricted response. No rules of engagement. No limits on force. Every weapon in our arsenal authorized for use. Cole stood and walked to the window. Outside, ships were being fueled and armed. Soldiers were boarding transports. The largest military mobilization in human history was underway. We call it Operation Reckoning, he said. 417 warships, including 12 carriers, 80 destroyers, and our entire marine complement. Enough firepower to turn their homeworld into glass. Will it be enough? Park asked. Cole turned to look at her. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Not anger, not fear, but something cold and absolute. Lieutenant Commander, I'm going to tell you something that is classified at the highest level. Can I trust you? Yes, sir. Humanity has been building weapons since before we reached the stars. We have weapons that we have never shown the Council. Weapons we hoped we would never have to use. The Zora think they know what war is. They have no idea. He picked up his cap and placed it on his head. In exactly 65 hours, we will send one final transmission to the Zorath. A single word. What word? Cole walked toward the door. Acknowledged. That is all? Just one word? Cole paused at the doorway. It is all they deserve. They were warned. They chose to laugh. Now they will discover why humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. He left the office. 65 hours later, the transmission was sent. A single word, as promised. Acknowledged. In the council chambers, several delegates who had studied human history suddenly felt very cold. They knew what that word meant. They had read the stories. Councilor Vreth turned to his advisor. Why do they seem so worried? Keleth was pale. Because that word means the talking is over. It means humanity has made their choice. And what choice is that? Keleth looked at the frightened faces around the chamber. They have chosen to stop being polite. The Zorath patrol fleet guarding the outer edge of their home system consisted of 64 warships. These were not small vessels. Each one was a battlecruiser, armed with weapons that had destroyed civilizations. Their crews were veterans of 100 raids, 100 conquests. Fleet Commander Draxus stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Hunger. He was confident, almost bored. The humans were coming, according to intelligence reports. A small fleet, perhaps 30 or 40 ships, was moving toward Zorath space. Let them come, he said to his second-in-command. We will destroy them and bring the survivors to the Supreme Commander as a gift. His sensors officer made a sound of concern. Commander, I am picking up faster-than-light signatures at the edge of sensor range. How many? I am still counting. There was a pause. 50 contacts, 60, 80. Draxus leaned forward. 80 ships? The humans brought 80 ships? Commander, the count is still rising. 100 contacts. 120. 150. The bridge fell silent. 200 contacts. 250. 300. Draxus gripped the arms of his command chair. That is impossible. They cannot have that many ships. 350. 400. The sensors officer turned, his face pale. Commander, final count is 417 human vessels. They are dropping out of faster-than-light travel now. Through the view screen, space itself seemed to tear open. Ships emerged in perfect formation, wave after wave, filling the darkness with metal and light. They moved with mechanical precision, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Each vessel took its position like pieces on a game board. The human fleet did not hail them, did not demand surrender, did not speak at all. They simply opened fire. The first volley was devastating. Human weapons were not like anything the Zorath had faced before. They were not energy beams or plasma bolts. They were something worse. Projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed, carrying warheads that exploded with the force of small stars. 3 Zorath battlecruisers died in the first 10 seconds. Return fire. Draxus screamed. All ships, return fire. His fleet tried. They were veterans, hardened by centuries of combat. But the humans moved differently. Their ships dodged and weaved, changing course in ways that seemed impossible. Their targeting was perfect, every shot finding its mark. Another wave of fire. 5 more Zorath ships vanished in expanding bowls of flame. Send word to the homeworld. Draxus commanded. Tell them we are under attack by a force 10 times larger than expected. His communications officer shook his head. Commander, they are jamming all frequencies. Nothing is getting through. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 11 minutes. By the end, 64 Zorath battlecruisers had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Not a single human ship had been lost. Admiral Cole watched from the bridge of the carrier Victory. His face showed no satisfaction, no triumph. Only cold purpose. Signal all ships, he said. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. The human fleet moved deeper into Zorath space. They passed defense stations, orbital platforms, and patrol routes. Nothing stopped them. Nothing even slowed them down. The first planet they reached was a mining world. Thousands of slaves worked in the deep tunnels, digging ore for the Zorath war machine. The human ships surrounded the planet and broadcast a simple message. This is Admiral Nathan Cole of Earth's Unified Defense Force. We are here to liberate this world. All Zorth military personnel will lay down their weapons and surrender. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. You have 5 minutes to comply." The Zorth garrison commander laughed at the message. He ordered his troops to fortify their positions and prepare for a ground assault. He expected the humans to send soldiers, to fight door to door, to bleed for every inch of ground. Instead, 3 small devices fell from orbit. They struck the main military compound with perfect accuracy. The explosions were contained, surgical. When the light faded, the compound was gone. Not damaged. Gone. A perfectly circular crater marked where 3,000 Zorth soldiers had stood. The remaining garrisons surrendered within the hour. Human Marines landed in dropships, moving with efficiency that seemed almost mechanical. They did not shoot unarmed prisoners. They did not torture. They simply secured the area, freed the slaves, and moved on. But they did not accept surrender from anyone who resisted. Sergeant Kate Sullivan led her squad through the tunnels, beneath the mining complex. Her team of 12 Marines moved in perfect silence, clearing room after room with methodical precision. They found a group of Zorth guards trying to destroy records of their operations. Sullivan's team neutralized them in 4 seconds. Clean shots, center mass. No hesitation. A young Marine named Chris Taylor looked at the fallen guards. They were trying to surrender, Sergeant. They had their hands up. Sullivan did not slow down. They were destroying evidence of slave trading, of murder, of children sold to the highest bidder. She moved past the bodies without a second glance. The rules of engagement are clear. We accept surrender only from those who have not committed atrocities. These ones forfeited that right. They found the detention block 15 minutes later. Behind energy barriers, hundreds of beings from a dozen different species huddled in fear. They had been worked nearly to death, starved, beaten. Some bore scars from torture. Sullivan's team shut down the barriers. The prisoners stared at the humans with wide, terrified eyes. "It is okay," Sullivan said, her voice gentle. "You are free. We are taking you home." An elderly alien, his species unknown, reached out a trembling hand and touched Sullivan's armored shoulder. "You are human? The ones who smile and bring gifts?" "We are. But you destroyed the Zorth. You came for us. Why?" Sullivan helped him to his feet. "Because nobody else would." The liberation continued for 6 days. Planet by planet, station by station, the human fleet dismantled the Zorth Collective's infrastructure. They freed over 140,000 slaves from dozens of species. They destroyed weapons factories, slave markets, and torture chambers, and they searched for their own people. On the 5th day, a Marine squad breached a holding facility in orbit around the Zorth homeworld. Inside, they found them. The colonists of New Haven, 17,000 humans, huddled in cells, waiting to be sold. They were alive. All of them. Mary Collins was holding her children when the Marines broke through the door. She had not slept in days. She had not let go of Emma and Sam since they had been captured. A Marine knelt beside her. He removed his helmet, revealing a young face with kind eyes. "Ma'am, my name is Private Danny Martinez. We are here to take you home." Mary stared at him. She could not speak. She could only hold her children and cry. "Is everyone here?" Martinez asked. "Is anyone hurt?" "My husband," Mary managed to say. "Daniel, he tried to fight them. I do not know if he is." Martinez touched his communication device. "Control, this is Martinez. We need a full medical sweep. We have wounded." "Copy that, Martinez." "Medical teams are on the way." Mary looked at the young Marine. How did you find us so fast?" Martinez smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. "Ma'am, When they took you, the whole planet came together. Every human on Earth, we stopped fighting each other and started fighting for you." He helped her to her feet. "You should know something. Your husband is alive. He's in another holding area. We found him an hour ago. He asked us to find you first." Mary collapsed against him, sobbing. Her children clung to her legs, crying with relief. Around them, other reunions were happening. Families finding each other. Friends embracing. Tears flowing freely. Admiral Cole received the report on his bridge. All colonists recovered. All 17,000 alive. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and looked at the view screen, where the Zorath homeworld hung in space, surrounded by the broken remnants of its defense fleet. "Signal Supreme Commander Korath," Cole said. "Tell him we have one final matter to discuss." The channel opened. Korath's face appeared, no longer arrogant, no longer laughing. He looked old, broken, afraid. "What do you want?" he asked. Cole leaned forward. "Your surrender, unconditional. You will stand trial for your crimes. Your government will be dissolved. Your military will be disbanded. Every slave in your possession will be freed. And if I refuse?" Cole smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Then we will demonstrate what humanity looks like when we stop holding back." Korath surrendered within the hour. 1 month had passed since the fall of the Zorath Collective. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The numbers were staggering. 6 days of combat. The complete destruction of the most feared power in the outer regions. 3,200 Zorath military personnel killed. Over 140,000 slaves freed. An empire that had terrorized countless worlds for 5 centuries, dismantled like a child's toy, and then the humans had stopped. They did not occupy Zorath space. They did not claim territory or demand tribute. They freed the slaves, arrested the leadership, destroyed the military infrastructure, and then they simply left. The Zorath people were allowed to rebuild, under supervision, with strict rules against ever returning to their old ways. Many species did not understand this. The Tyranni would have taken the territory. The Keth would have enslaved the survivors. The old powers of the galaxy operated on a simple principle: the strong take from the weak. But humanity was different. They had proven they were the strongest. And then they had chosen mercy. It was terrifying. Ambassador Morrison returned to the council chambers on a quiet morning. He wore his usual dark suit. He carried his usual plate of cookies. His wife had made them fresh that morning, she said, because the important work was starting again. The chamber was different now. The delegates no longer looked at him with amusement or condescension. They watched him the way small animals watch a predator that has decided not to hunt. Morrison smiled at them. It was the same warm, genuine smile he had always worn. But now they knew what lay behind it. He took his seat in the human delegation area. Lieutenant Commander Park stood behind him, her posture relaxed. She looked exactly as she always had, professional and pleasant. But the Keth delegate, who had once knocked her data pad, had not approached her since the war. He kept his distance, his pheromones radiating something that translators identified as extreme caution. Council of Wrath called the session to order. His voice was careful, measured, lacking its usual tone of superiority. The Council welcomes back Ambassador Morrison. We hope that humanity's people have recovered from their ordeal. Thank you, Counselor, Morrison said pleasantly. The colonists are settling into new homes. Therapy programs are in place for those who need them. The children are back in school. We are healing. The Council commends humanity's restraint in the aftermath of the conflict, Wrath continued. Many were surprised that you did not claim Zorath territory. Morrison nodded. We discussed it. The decision was not unanimous. Some felt we had earned the right to expand our borders. But in the end, We decided that conquest was not our way. We had proved our point. There was no need to prove it further. Delegate Vorax of the Keth hegemony shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had not spoken to Morrison since before the war. He had mocked the humans, called them weak, laughed at their cookies and their smiles. Now he could not meet their eyes. After the session ended, Morrison made his rounds. He spoke with delegates from every species, asking about their families, their worlds, their concerns. He offered cookies to everyone, including Vorax, who accepted one with trembling appendages. "Ambassador Morrison," Vorax said quietly, "I owe you an apology." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Before, when you asked for passage through Keth space, I was dismissive. I called your people weak. I was wrong." Morrison smiled gently. "Delegate Vorax, you were not entirely wrong. We are weak in many ways. We bruise easily. We need sleep and food and water in quantities that would make your species laugh. A single Keth could probably tear me apart with their bare hands." Vorax blinked in confusion. "Then how did you defeat the Zarth?" Morrison took a cookie from his plate and bit into it. "Because strength is not just about physical power. It is about will, about unity, about the willingness to do terrible things to protect the ones you love." He met Vorax's many eyes directly. "When you threatened us, when you dismissed us, you were correct that any one of us is weak. But 11 billion weak creatures, all fighting for the same thing, at the same time, with the same fury?" He shook his head. "That is something no species should have to face." Vorax was quiet for a long moment. "The passage through Keth space. Is that offer still open?" "It is. Then the Keth hegemony accepts." "With gratitude." Morrison smiled. "Wonderful. I will have my people draw up the agreement. And please, take some cookies for the journey home. My wife makes them with something called dark chocolate. They are quite good." In the following months, humanity's position in the Council changed dramatically. Species that had ignored them now sought their alliance. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Diplomatic relationships that would have taken decades formed in weeks. But it was not fear alone that drove this change. It was respect. The freed slaves spoke of their rescue. They told stories of human soldiers who were fierce in combat, but gentle with prisoners. Marines who shared their food rations with starving captives. Medics who stayed up all night treating wounded aliens they had never met. Officers who wept when they found the children locked in cages. Humanity was capable of terrible violence. But they were also capable of great kindness. The two traits existed side by side, and somehow that made both more meaningful. Councillor Vreth invited Ambassador Morrison to dinner at his private residence. It was a significant honor, one that the tyranny rarely extended to younger species. They sat in a garden under the light of artificial stars. Vreth served traditional tyranny cuisine, and Morrison complimented the cooking with genuine appreciation. "I must confess something," Vreth said after the meal. "I have been studying humanity since your arrival. Your history, your culture, your psychology. I thought I understood you. And now? Now I understand that I understood nothing." Vreth set down his cup. "You have fought more wars in your short history than most species fight in 10,000 years. You have weapons that could sterilize planets. And yet you bring cookies to diplomatic meetings. You apologize when someone steps on your foot. You remember birthdays." Morrison nodded. "It does seem contradictory." "No," Vreth said slowly. "I think I finally understand. The courtesy is not despite your capability for violence. It is because of it." Morrison looked at him with new interest. "Go on. You know what you are capable of. You have seen what you can do when you stop holding back. And that knowledge, that terrible knowledge, is why you try so hard to be kind. Because you know that if you are not careful, you could become monsters. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. There is an old saying on Earth, with great power comes great responsibility. We have power, counselor, more than we ever wanted. And so we hold ourselves to a higher standard. We smile because we have seen what happens when we do not. We apologize because we know how easy it is to cause harm. We bring cookies because we want to build connections, not burn bridges. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the artificial stars. Every act of kindness is a choice. Every apology, every smile, every gift. We make those choices deliberately, knowing full well what the alternative is. Does that make them less sincere? No. I think it makes them more meaningful. Wrath joined him at the window. And what happens if the galaxy threatens you again? If another species takes your people, harms your children? Morrison turned to look at him. His eyes were calm, steady, without anger but without weakness. Then we make a different choice. We made that clear to the Zorith. They did not listen. Others will remember. And you will return to being polite afterward? Morrison smiled. It was the same warm smile he had worn on his first day at the council. But Wrath saw something else in it now. Depth, weight. The smile of someone who had seen darkness and chosen light. We will always return to being polite, counselor, because that is who we choose to be. The violence is not who we are. It is what we are capable of. There is a difference. In the centuries that followed, humanity spread across the stars. They formed alliances, built colonies, and contributed to the great project of galactic civilization. They remained friendly, cooperative, and eager to help. But nobody ever forgot what they had seen at diplomatic gatherings. When human ambassadors offered sweets and smiled at strangers, other species accepted with respect. When human ships passed through foreign space, they were given wide clearance and courteous greetings. When human children played with alien children on space stations, their parents watched with something between affection and awe. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity. Politeness was not weakness. Kindness was not stupidity. A smile did not mean surrender. It meant choice. And humanity, more than any species in the known universe, understood the weight of choice. They had faced their own darkness and stepped back from the edge. They had built weapons that could end worlds and then decided not to use them. They had proven they could be monsters, and then they had chosen to be friends. That was what made them terrifying. Not their ships or their weapons or their numbers. It was the knowledge that behind every handshake, every gift, every warm word, stood a species that had chosen peace and could choose otherwise at any moment. So the galaxy treated humanity with respect, not because they were afraid, not entirely, but because they understood, at last, that the smiling humans were not harmless.